So I came across this video. Oh, by the way, this is Mike from Verity. I came across this video, and it's Joe Rogan and Russel Brand discussing the power elite. And they actually are talking mostly about the United States. So in this video, I'm kind of react to it and give my insight and my opinions and take them for what they're worth. So let's jump into this.
Of progress. This is why I have sometimes am skeptical, not about technology, the mastery and the geniuses that work in that field, but how technology and science as a subset of our economic ideology can create exactly the conditions that you are describing and that journalist has exposed. That if your ideology permits that, then what kind of ideology is that? What kind of unconsciousness are we living in? It's not an awakened culture. And all of the discourse around, like, you know, how we treat one another as individuals and progressivism culturally in domestic territories, hey, people should be allowed to do this and that. It's a nonsense if that is permitted. Not only permitted, required. It's a requirement. You cannot have that economic model without that price being paid. And as a culture, whether it's me as an individual or our entire culture, we've accepted that contract. We've accepted those terms.
Well, we have in some areas of our life for sure. You know, hopefully people haven't done that in their interpersonal, intimate relationships, but we certainly have in the way we communicate with others. We've certainly accepted like very bizarre ways of communicating online. And sometimes that bleeds out into real life, like where someone talks to people in the real world as if they're on Twitter and they get bashed. Yeah. Like you see that sometimes. I think it's a very strange time where I don't think people have a lot of faith right now in institutions, and I don't think they have a lot of faith in authority. I don't think they really believe that there is someone who is wiser than them, that has a grand plan, that's logical, that's workable, where they're looking out for all of us. So I think there's like a
let me jump in here on this. So I have to disagree, because I don't think, at least myself personally, I don't think that I am looking for a person, you know, a flesh and blood person to lead me, to direct me. Everybody's their own person. Everybody has to find out who they are for themselves. For people to look for an individual to help them out, to lead them in the way of whatever they're looking for in life, whatever their destination is, I think it's nonsense. Okay. Now, if you're talking about the truth and the great I am, you know, the one true God, yeah, sure. I mean, I can understand that. But an individual, an authority figure, a government, a body of people, I don't see that.
A feeling of chaos that exists today that I don't think has ever existed in my life like this before. Even back during like the Bush administration, when everybody thought Bush was a moron, they still thought there's a good cabinet and they're following all the checks and balances.
I don't know. I don't know anybody that I've talked to during that time period thought that. I mean, we had the whole gamut of people that even Colin Powell, he wasn't on board with what they were doing. And you look at, Cheney and some of these guys, nobody agreed with them, what they were doing. I mean, they were in this cesspool of war, and nobody wanted to go to war. I mean, you're talking about millions of people that essentially might have been killed during this war, because my personal opinion, I think it all had to do with his dad and bringing about this Patriot Act that we have to be subject to anyway. But
even though they're probably extracting too much money, and there's probably a lot of cronyism and a lot of undercover deals and a lot of like no bid contracts with Halliburton and that kind of nonsense, he still thought they have things pretty under control. It's a very solid institution. Nobody believes that now. You see Pete Buttigieg and fucking Kamala Harris and Biden can't get a sentence out. You're like, this is madness. I think that people are just following a party.
because there's nobody in their right mind think that the characters that he labeled just then are coherent of any kind. I mean, they're goofballs, right? And the personalities aside, they have no business running a government department as goofy as they are. They don't have any idea what they're doing.
People are utter fools. And these are the people that are running everything. And these are the people that are getting us on the brink of war with Russia. And I don't have any faith in them. And I think most people don't.
I think you're right. And with the that era of the Cheney, Bush, Wolfowitz, Rumsfeld, it felt like, oh, these are the Death Star bods.
Yeah.
What's happening is there's this risen up military-industrial complex, Rand Foundation ideologues from the Republican right, who were the sanctioned baddies back in those days, are trying to profit from the colonization of the Middle East. It's part of a new American project.
I think you see a lot of this with McConnell and the rest of these guys that wear the Ukrainian flag on their. I don't think we have any business there, right? I mean, you can negotiate with Russia and say, listen, dude, I mean, the whole Russia deal, there has to be some negotiation with them. This ain't going to end well. I mean, you're talking about a lot of people dying for no reason. And you're talking about, I mean, I think it's no reason. It has nothing to do with us. Okay. Let it be a burden. I mean, if you look at the actual weight of the amount of money that's being spent, the materials and time, it's just mind-boggling. That's mind-boggling.
We sort of understood it, but from where I'm coming from, it was somehow recognizable, and 1 million people went on a march to prevent that war taking place because they knew there were no weapons of mass destruction, which we now know to be the truth. And as you say, now the figures that
it's all this conspiracy crap you hear about January 6th and the Democrats pushing this. There wasn't no conspiracy. There's a conspiracy and all these things. Conspiracy. It's just a polite way of saying, let's get this moved by us until we have time to digest it, get it out of the people's conscience, and then we can move on. Who cares what happens 6 months or a year? Look at the whole COVID deal.
Are in that place are sort of posing as the good guys, like affable and avuncular presidents and sort of friendly people of, that across the identitarian spectrum that's meant to feel inclusive and progressive.
Yeah, they're wrapping themselves up with progressive identity politics and then promoting a war.
Yes,
at the same time. It's very wild.
Yeah, it feels like a mask and a veil. Like, this is what's interesting for me is as we navigate this new and emergent space of being able to present counter narratives and continually, like all of us now, have like experienced, oh, you're a right-wing conspiracy theorist, you've joined the alt-right, you're a gateway to this, the dark web, all of that language that grows up around it. Like, this, and I've heard you speak about this obviously a lot, but the truth is that who isn't sympathetic? Anyone that's got a family or loves someone is sympathetic to the idea that people are going to have various types of identity around culture and religious expression and racial expression, and this is a conversation that the whole culture has to be involved in together. What my issue is, I don't think they believe in that stuff. I don't think they care. I don't think that they are creating an agenda to advance the interests of vulnerable people. I think they are using it as a distraction and a veil in order to carry on with the same kind of corporate and financial interests that have always determined what the establishment is. And if there's one thing we can point to in our lifetime, it's that the liberal establishment has become co-opted by the same forces that traditionally we regarded the right to have been co-opted by: military-industrial complex, financial industry. And there's now there's palpable evidence for that. And in order...
See, what... you can look at what he's saying and digest it for yourself, but he's absolutely right. There's a polar shift. It used to be back in the Reagan era that the Republicans, they were in charge of these massive corporations. They led us into this capitalism that everybody seems to hate, the trickle-down effect, which there's no such thing as a trickle-down effect. And I just, there's a shift. It's the Democrats are for war. The Democrats are for big government. The Democrats are for this whole big corporate tech industry. They run the Democrat, liberal, progressive party. They run all the news medias, right? Even Fox News. They run all the major corporations, whether it's everything from Coca-Cola to Disney to all the Wall Street. That used to be that they used to say, well, the Republicans aren't for the little guy. Well, the Democrats always been for themselves. They've been for their congregate, right? So whether it has to do with slavery back when, against the Republicans trying to free the slaves, whether it's the KKK, which the Democratic Party used to put people in line that didn't agree with them, LBJ, the biggest racist, even down to Biden is a racist, right? So if you want to put all these labels on Republicans, they just keep pushing it off. Hey, you know what? We're not them. They're liars. They're liars. They're liars. And that's all they've been. Now they do with the COVID deal. Now they're doing it with Ukraine and all this wokeism, transgender. They keep pushing this crap because they have an agenda to fulfill. And the Republicans are pulled with them with a chain and a weight. That's what they are. They're being dragged along this cliff, right? So what used to be not even unheard of is now acceptable, and the Republicans jump on in with it because they don't want to be labeled as an outsider or a conspiracy theory.
To not acknowledge that transition's taken place, they're able to keep the cultural conversation going. We care about your right to express yourself and your identity. That's a way of not acknowledging we're just the same. We're pro-war. Yeah. And now when there's that war, like Jimmy Dore and all those guys did that anti-war march in Washington or whatever, it's like 5,000 people go. Now, I don't know if that's because of the last few years and what the pandemic's done to people accumulating and gathering crowds, or whether people have lost the belief and faith that people can have any impact on politics anymore. There's just now this immersive sense of apathy, this, as you say, loss of trust in institutions and authority. But something extraordinary has happened when people that say that we're the peace and love party are the party that are advocating for war.
Yeah, anyway, so, you go on through this, and this Russell Brand guy, he's getting a notoriety because he's speaking what we all think, right? Even in the darkest halls of Congress, these guys don't believe that. They follow along because they got money involved in it. They got their clientele, I look at it, to keep up with. They don't believe in this crap. They just keep, because they like the power. They like the free meals. They like the attention. So they're going to keep moving their way. It's this whole MAGA extremism. And now who would ever think that making America great is an extremism? And I read something the other day that it was on Bill Maher's show that they said that DeSantis is he's a tribute band and Trump's the real band, right? Now, and he says that nobody really likes Trump, but they don't want the tribute band into Ron DeSantis. Now, myself, I don't like Trump personally. I think he had a chance to drain the swamp before. He didn't do it. He had a chance to revamp the Department of Education, the FBI, the CIA, all the alphabets, right? And he didn't do any of that. He had a chance to change the political voting system. He didn't do that. He had 2 years of Republicans in full house, right? In the Congress and the Senate. He could have did anything he want. He could have wrote out, this whole wall deal and putting a military, anyways, but he's the only thing that Republicans have that are to the right. They don't have an individual that they can get behind, but they get behind Trump is because he's closest to they have. They don't have anything in McCarthy or McConnell and some of these goofballs that are on the right that just run their mouths. They can't get behind. So they're grasping at anything to pull them out of the mire that they're in, and they're not draining those swamps. They like it just as much as the Democrats do. So, well, I hope you guys found value in this video. If you did, please subscribe, hit the like button, share it with your friends and neighbor, and I do read all your comments, so please comment. You guys have a wonderful day, and I will look forward to you on the next video. Bye now.